समस्त जन कल्याणी निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ। Hari Om. Today we are going to integrate all that has been spoken for the last couple of weeks. So we have reached that point where we are speaking of the Anandamaya Kośa. Remember the 5 sheets? The 5th sheet, Anandamaya Kośa. So what is this sheet? The subtlest and the most pervasive of all the sheets, the sheet which is called the bliss sheet. It is otherwise called as the causal body also. It is of the nature of ignorance. Of what? Of one from far, far, far away from the world. Also, it is removed from the body, the pranas, and it is also away from all thoughts and feelings. But it is also away from the inner core, the true self, and therefore it is completely detached from all the upadhis of the world. When we wake up in the morning from the deep sleep, what do we experience? We experience a bliss. Why do we experience this bliss? Is because while we were away from all these worldly upadhis, the physical body and the mental thoughts, we were very close to that real true self. Unfortunately, we are ignorant of the self also. But just because of the close proximity to the self and the detachment to all everything else, in the deep sleep you experience that bliss. But when you wake up, you express that bliss. But one may say, I also enjoy or I get bliss otherwise in the world. When I eat a beautiful ice cream, it is blissful. Correct. The Shastra says there are 3 types of bliss. One, bliss, that happiness or joy which even a hunter, while hunting its prey, gets. But that happiness or bliss, that joy, is a tamasic joy. Tamas meaning a negative joy. Then there is another kind of joy that we get. What is that? When we are watching or reading a thriller comic or a thriller movie, or for that matter, when we are imagining that, okay, today I am going to eat all kind of great food, that is also joy. But this joy is rajasic, meaning very worldly oriented, extroverted. But think of that joy when you are sitting calmly and watching the sunrise. Is that bliss? Yes. Is that not a different kind of bliss? Yes, it is. When you see a beautiful painting being painted, or when you see a lovely sculpture, or when your ears listen to beautiful sound of music, what happens to you? What happens inside? You get bliss. This kind of bliss is called the sattvic bliss. What are the 3 bliss difference? How is it different? The first one, as we said, it is purely animalistic, external. The second is so worldly that once you enjoy it, after a few moments it gets over. and then you crave for more. Means it is there for a moment and goes away. But the third one that we spoke about, that bliss, which is sattvic, which is within you, which becomes one with you. It remains with you for the longest period of time. The 5 sheets from covering which conceal the jewel of the self. In their fold, they are modifications of elements, born to die. That's why the experience in these 5 sheets or the 3 bodies, they come and go. The self is beyond all the modification. The self is unborn. The self is immortal and is also the witness of all this. All this we have by now. We have seen different forms of the 5 sheets. And this is what is the next stage, what we call as beyond the 5 sheets, the topic of our day today. What is beyond the 5 sheets? That is the self. What is this self? It is the nature of existence, consciousness, and bliss. The not self, the anatma, was described in its entirety, and it was explained how it is not the self. It is not the atma. What were the things? The 3 bodies. What are the 3 bodies? The gross, the subtle, and the causal. The 5 sheets. What are the 5 sheets? The basic body sheet, that is the annamaya, then the pranamaya, the air sheet, then the manomaya, the intellectual or the thoughtful sheet, the mind sheet, mental sheet, then vijnanamaya, the intellectual sheet, and finally the anandamaya or the ignorance or blissful sheet, which is also beyond the 3 states. What are the 3 states? The waking state that we are in, the dream state where we are not awake but we are conscious of our thoughts, and finally the deep sleep state where nothing is aware. That is the not self, anatma. Then what is the self? The nature of the self can be indicated in 2 ways. Few weeks ago, you remember, I gave you an example, tatakshalakshana. If you don't know something what is, you have to indicate it. These, all the different states, the 3 bodies, the panchakosha, these were all nothing but indicative that the atma, the self, the consciousness is not this, not this, not this, not this. Then how to find it out, how to know it? By swarupa lakshana, or the nature by itself, indicating it directly. Nay, not even directly, intimately. Directly I see, but still there is a seer and there is a seen. So it is not direct, but to feel it direct is swarupa lakshana. How do we call it? Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat meaning existence. What is existence? That which remains unchanged in the 3 period of time. 3 period of time, the past, the present, and the future. You know, the past and the future can only be possible if you are in the present. And the self is the present in all the 3 period of time, isn't it? It means it was always there and will ever be. When I, the self, was not there. And there will never be a time where I, the self, won't be there. Birth is coming to existence of a particular name and form. Death is the destruction of the name and form. Since I, the self, exist ever, I am Ajam, meaning birthless, Amar, deathless, Anadi, beginningless, and Ananta, endless. I can keep going on saying many more. I am Nitya, meaning ever, Avikari, changeless, Anami, nameless. I am Nirankar, formless. I am Nirguna, attributeless. So many names of the same. Yes, these are all the names given to that one objectless existence, which is the nature of pure being. In it, there is no being, as it is changeless forever. Anything exists because of this existence principle, which is the very substratum of the entire universe. It is experienced in the world as the box is, the book is, the object is, the isness of things. And in us, in me, it is experienced as I am. So what are we explaining? What are we understanding? Sat Chit Ananda, the existence, consciousness and bliss of whose? The self. Now, consciousness or Chit. What is consciousness? It is of the nature of absolute knowledge. Knowledge of the world is gained as thoughts of the mind. Go back far in the beginning. What is mind? Mind is a continuous flow of thoughts. Bereft of thoughts, what is mind? There is no mind. Without thoughts, no knowledge of any object is possible. Even these thoughts, I am hungry, this is a book, I am not understanding, I am unable to understand, and all these kind of thoughts, they cannot be without the consciousness. Without me, the consciousness, the thoughts cannot be known. The consciousness illumines or illuminates all the thoughts, remaining different from the thoughts. Think about it. Thoughts come. Somebody is watching it. Somebody is the observer. Who is that? That is the consciousness. I not only illumine, consciousness not only illumines the thoughts, but it also illumines the absence of thoughts. Thoughts come and go, but the consciousness remains unchanging and ever shining. Then who illumines the self? The question should come. None. None can illumine the self. It is the subject of all. Also, there is no need to illumine. Can you say, okay, let me search the sun with a torchlight? It will be sounding so foolish. Therefore, the self is self-illuminating. This self-shining or the ever-shining knowledge principle is called Chit, consciousness, which is my true nature. Sat, Chit, and now Ananda. Ananda meaning joy. Oh, you are going to repeat the same joy, Anandamaya Kosha. No. Think about it. That Ananda, that joy was covered with ignorance, where you were not aware of anything. But this, we are talking about the pure consciousness. This is joy unlimited. This is joy, absolute happiness. A thing is dear to us. Please pay attention carefully. A thing is dear to me only when it gives me joy. I love my house as a place, as this place gives me comfort and peace. I love others for my sake. But I love myself unconditionally, totally, eternally. All is loved for the sake of one, that is me. This is a factual statement. The peace and happiness that I experience from something or somebody, I like to be in close to that. There is sorrow in this finite world, but the self is beyond time, space and objects. Desha, kala, vastu, aparichinna vastu. That which is beyond time, beyond space and object. It is infinite and hence the nature of absolute happiness. Each thing tends to move towards its nature, isn't it? If I hold a cane in my hand and bend it and I leave one side, whoop, it will go back straight. It moves to its natural position. If I hold a ball and leave, it falls down, goes to the gravity. You hold a newspaper, put it together and leave it, slowly it will try to open. Hold a rubber band, stretch it, leave it, it will go together. Everything moves to its natural nature. Each thing tends to move towards its own nature. And therefore, I always desire happiness. Have you ever thought, why do we desire happiness all the time? Why don't we desire, oh, I hope that I get some sorrow? Why? Because our nature is Ananda, joy. By nature, we do not like to be burdened. Happiness is never a burden to me. Why? Because it is my own nature. Whilst sorrow is always burden. A little bit of pinprick, we don't want. But if somebody is massaging our hand, we never want him to stop. Isn't it? This is Ananda, the nature that we are. Then why don't I experience this happiness always? Why am I miserable most of the time? Dissatisfied? The answer is very close to us. The answer is desires in our mind for objects veil this happiness. In moments when we are completely peaceful, we experience joy within ourselves without any object.